this season of the podcast, we're honoring two groundbreaking musicals that changed the course of Broadway history, A Chorus Line and Chicago. Both are celebrating their 50th anniversaries this summer. In this special season, we sit down with original cast members from each show to hear their memories from rehearsals and performances, the influence of their legendary mentors Michael Bennett and Bob Fosse, and how they carry those lessons forward in their work today. These are first-hand stories from the artists who lived it and danced it 8 times a week. All month long, I'll be sharing historical content about both shows. Be sure to follow @Immortal Icons of Dance to see vintage photos, behind-the-scenes footage, and excerpts from past interviews. For the full experience, you can visit The Vault on our website, immortaliconsofdance.com/vault. I hope you enjoy this season of interviews and join me in celebrating the legacy of these truly immortal icons of dance. Oh, before we dive in, I wanted to give you a quick heads up. In these interviews, we're often using shorthand, Broadway or dance insider language. You'll hear us use first names without last names, or maybe mention a song by its nickname instead of its full title. These episodes definitely aren't a beginner's guide or Broadway 101. It's a conversation between dancers for dancers. So if some of the references fly by, that's okay. It's part of the beauty of these conversations. Dancers being able to open up to another dancer without having to over-explain themselves. I hope you still enjoy the spirit of the conversation as much as I did. In today's episode, I'll be speaking with Mitzi Hamilton. Mitzi is a dancer, choreographer, director, and an original contributor to A Chorus Line. Her real-life story helped to shape one of Broadway's most iconic characters, Valerie Clark. Originally from Illinois, she began her dance training at a young age and began to dance professionally before moving to New York. She made her Broadway debut in How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. She also appeared in Bob Fosse's Pippin, in Michael Bennett's Seesaw, and King of Hearts. In the early 1970s, she was one of the dancers invited by Michael Bennett to participate in the now famous taped workshop sessions that formed the basis for A Chorus Line. Her personal story became part of the foundation for the character of Val, the bold, outspoken dancer who performs Dance 10, Looks 3. Although Mitzi didn't originate Val on Broadway, she performed the role in the London premiere in 1976 and returned to play her on Broadway for many years after. Over time, she's become one of the trusted keepers of A Chorus Line, staging and directing authorized productions of the show around the world, including national tours, regional productions, and major international stagings. She's also been widely praised for preserving the original integrity of Michael Bennett's vision while mentoring new generations of performers. Beyond A Chorus Line, Mitzi has directed and choreographed numerous musical theater productions and has worked as an educator, sharing her deep knowledge of performance and storytelling. Joining us today for the podcast on Immortal Icons of Dance is Mitzi Hamilton, the original inspiration for the character of Val in A Chorus Line, which celebrates its 50th anniversary this year. Thank you for joining me, Mitzi.
Oh, my pleasure. It's fun to be here with you, Lauren. Thank you for inviting me.
So can you start by telling me the very beginning, how did you begin dancing and what were some of the influences that inspired you to perform?
Oh my gosh. Well, movie musicals. I grew up with movie musicals. My mom loved them. And I didn't know until many years later that she wanted to be a dancer, but she never could achieve that as she grew up in the Depression era. And but she took me by the hand when I was a little girl, and I knew early on in that dance studio that I could do it. You know, as we were given the exercises and then the steps going across the dance floor, I have a vivid memory in my head about doing this jazz walk across the floor, and I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, but I knew that I was connected with it somehow. Anyway, then I continued all those years, and in high school was introduced then to musical theater, which I had not ever been exposed. Oh my gosh, South Pacific was the first piece of musical theater that I learned in my senior year of high school, and I was cast as Nellie Forbush. So I had the leading role, and I didn't know that you could, that dance was involved with singing and acting, and this whole new world opened up to me, and obviously fell in love with it, and went on from there. I did not have a college education. My father was only sending his two sons to college in those years. And so I just continued after I graduated from high school um, to get involved with whatever dance was going on in the Chicago area. And it was really, there was not much of musical theater going on in those days. I'm talking like the early 1960s. But I did things like the auto show and the boat show. There were a bunch of dancers that danced around cars or danced around boats and things like that. And then finally, when summer stock came around, I got to do shows until finally, one summer, uh, well, a dear friend of mine, Lou Conti, who was responsible for founding Hubbard Street here in Chicago. We were contemporaries, we were good friends. We did a lot of those shows together, and he had moved to New York the year before, but came back then to do stock with us. And he said, Mitzi, you have got to move to New York. So he talked me into it, although, it just seemed like the right thing to do because that's where musical theater was. And so, sure enough, I finally moved in 1966, and I lived there for 35 years and did 8 Broadway musicals, and lived my dream. I mean, I started working right away. I went from show to show. I think I collected unemployment once in all those years, so I made a living at
Yeah.
it. And if I had gotten to New York 2 years sooner, I just might have in a chorus with Michael Bennett. And because he's just a year older than I am. And he was a chorus boy in Broadway shows before he started choreographing and directing, right? So I thought, oh, if I had only gotten here a couple years sooner, we just
Yeah.
might have been chorus kids together. But I always thought of him in a respect as one of us, because he was. I worked with a lot of great people, but yes. So I'm sorry. Back to your question. The Red Shoes was a great
Mm.
inspiration, obviously, but I never wanted to be a ballerina. But I thought it was so beautiful, and all of those movie musicals in
West Side
those.
Story.
Oh my, oh my gosh. When it opened here in Chicago, I went 10 nights in a row. I was doing a temp job at a bank of all places. I mean, I didn't have met, a skill for, I wasn't a secretary or anything like that, but I was in the filing department. And it was just like a temp job. But when West Side Story opened, each night for 10 nights in a row, I went to see that movie because I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I wanted to do what they were doing. And oh my gosh. Yeah, for
Do you
sure.
remember do you remember what it was that really drew you to West Side Story in particular?
Uh, the yes, the feel of jazz dance. Jazz dance really is what I always connected with. Um, and but yeah, with that foundation of good ballet training,
Hmm.
uh, you could see it in those dancers how beautiful they were, and that was glorious to see, really. Yeah, the dance itself. And the choreography, obviously, what Jerry Robbins did was so brilliant.
Could you tell me about how you made your Broadway debut?
Oh, that's a good story. Oh, thanks for asking that. That's a good story because I hadn't even moved to New York yet, but I danced on Broadway. So then in my early Chicago days before I moved to New York, and I'm talking like 1963, I worked for a man called Robert Simpson, and he did a review called Hits of Broadway in like dinner clubs and hotels and places like that. And so he sent us to Aruba, to the Aruba Caribbean Hotel. In Aruba at that time, there was only the one hotel. And so we did this review of the hits of Broadway, and we it was a 45-minute show. That's all we did. We did it 7 nights a week, and we were there for 3 months. I mean, all we did was sit on the beach and swim and then go do our show in the evening. I mean, it was, glorious. But before I had done that, I had joined the national company of How to Succeed in Business, right? At the Schubert Theater here in Chicago, it was the national tour. And a couple of dancers had left the show, so they needed replacements. So they held auditions in Chicago. And so I got hired. My friend Lou Conti, he was the one that told me to move to New York, and two other dancers. And the four of us joined that national tour, but it was sitting in Chicago at the Schubert, and then it closed after several months. So then that's when I got that review show in Aruba, and I'm down there for 3 months. And all of a sudden, oh, and then we went to Puerto Rico, and that's when I got a telegram from Phil Friedman. I mean, I'm talking still, 63, 64, and a telegram saying, we are planning to do a last national tour of How to Succeed, and we would like you to join us. If you could come to New York and do rehearsal and be in the last week of the show on Broadway, then we will send you out on tour. And so of course, I accepted and flew to New York. And and the next thing I know, I'm dancing on Broadway after a week rehearsal at the 46th Street Theater, which is now the Richard Rodgers, the 46th Street Theater. Uh, I was 19, I think, and it was 1964, and I'm dancing on Broadway for a week. And then went out on tour and toured, and then did some other shows back in the Chicago area, and then finally moved here in 66. So that was my first experience in a Broadway show.
Hmm.
The,
Was there any like a detail from your opening week or show, something about standing on the stage or backstage or someone you met? Like what was that really like, oh my gosh, I'm really here on Broadway moment for you?
it was walking out of the stage door after the performance, and it was slightly snowing, and a friend was meeting me, and I opened the door, and it was the magical moment. I mean, I just can still see it. It's as vivid as way back then. It was a very special night. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I what I love about the theater district is that so many landmarks in it hold so many people's little memories like that. And I just walked down the sidewalk past the Roger, yesterday. I was just there, and to now hear that your story, it's like that these little bits of sidewalk hold so many people's memories is just really
Oh
cool.
my, oh my gosh, yes, yes. And every time I went into that theater to see a show or yeah, I worked down the street at my stage door at the Imperial. I worked at the Imperial twice. And so I lived on that street too for many years.
Hmm.
So I passed that memory all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I loved living in New York. I miss it sometimes. Although I'm very comfortable out here in the country, I'm way out from the city. It's really pleasant. It's easy living. It's kind of where the suburbs end and the horse farms and the cornfields begin. So it's kind of an oasis out here.
Yeah, I think you've earned that peace after the career you've had. You've earned it. Could you tell me about when you first met Michael Bennett, and do you remember your first impression of him?
Oh gosh. Well, it was Seesaw. It was see No, I did audition for him for Coco, and I did get a call back. And I was very excited. And my hair was I was a brunette, dark brown hair, but I had that Vidal Sassoon haircut. So, very angular, short, and very period at that time. And it was all about the models. The dancers were models for Coco, and I got a call back, so I was very excited and hopeful. But then I got cut because I figured because I was too short. So, because he really needed those taller ladies. And but I don't remember much more than that. Until then, he came in to take over a Seesaw. I was in the original cast of Seesaw. Michael, we were in out of town tryouts in Detroit, and um, our producer had fired our director, Ed Sheeran, and oh yes, and our leading lady, Lainey Kazan, and all of a sudden things were up for grabs. But he brought in Michael Bennett with Tommy Tune and Bjork Lee and Tommy Walsh, a whole entourage of creators coming to save the show in Detroit. And but what was scary was Michael, because in those days, there was in musical theater, there was a singing chorus and a dancing chorus. And and because it had become so expensive to produce a show on Broadway, they were starting to condense the number of casts. And so Michael started firing the ensemble, but he was firing the singers. And we would come into rehearsal every morning not knowing who was going to get axed, but heads would roll, and we were all terrified. And I had a little part in the old script. I had a little character, but I was also a chorus girl too. But I had this little part that I was given, and Michael finally said to me one day, "Okay, Mitzi, I have to take that away from you." And I was like, I kind of like stopped breathing because I was afraid. I think this was the first time he talked to me personally, And
Hmm.
he said, "I have to take the part away from you." And I said, "Oh no, Michael, please. I really want to be an actress." And he said, "Oh, go on. You've got your eyelashes on. You look like a chorus girl sitting there." And I thought, okay, what can I do? He's the boss. So at least he didn't fire me. He kept me on, so I remained in the cast, but I just had the part taken away from me. And what Michael's concept was of Seesaw. Do you know the show? Do you know?
Only what I've read about it, but I'm not too familiar with the actual, the
Okay.
content of it.
Okay. Well, he changed a whole conceptual take on it. And the ensemble, the chorus kids, were non-entities. And the main characters were, real. They were real characters, real people, with real life uh, issues and situations and needs and wants and all of that. But we, as the chorus kids ensemble, He dressed us all the same in each number. In the red number, which was the ride out the storm, we were all in red costumes, red wigs. You couldn't tell one from another. In the Spanglish number, we were all in yellow and black wigs. Couldn't tell one from the other. And on from number to number, we were faceless, anonymous. And interesting enough, from that, I believe a chorus line was born because when I was at, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit now. I don't know if that's okay.
Sure.
Um, just a little bit because well then Seesaw only we opened, we did okay. Well, no, we weren't. The box office wasn't selling, and then Michael did the stunt with the mayor at the time. Oh, what was his name? Anyway, our box office started selling, and the show ran for only 11 months, but it had a run. Not great though. But when Michael then held the tape sessions, which really came next, I was invited. Well, that's another whole story. I don't want to get into that yet if you're interested. But but the second tape session that I was at, early that morning after we went from 11:30 the night before until 11:30 that morning, 12 hours straight. Um, he said to us, he sat us all down and he said, "How did you feel about dancing in the chorus of Seesaw?" My arm just shot up, after being not having any sleep. Immediately I said, "Hated it, Michael, hated it." Because we couldn't even be when you did musicals, Brigadoon or Carousel, or you were in the chorus, you could make up your own story, your own backstory, and your relationships with the people around you. You could build your own little world to fill it out and make it believable for yourself. In Seesaw, we were just non-entities, faceless. We, and I hated it. As much as I loved some of the fun parts of the choreography that he did for us, and just being in another Broadway show was great. But not being able to, as an actress, I guess that was because I did want to act more. Um, you couldn't with that show. So I said, "Hated it, Michael." And then guess what he did next? A chorus line where he celebrated our individuality.
Hmm.
I mean, to me, he went full circle, more or less, or he did a complete flip-flop. Um, well, because those tape sessions did something they created something in his mind to do this piece of theater.
Yeah. So that is my next question is the tape sessions that you've started to talk about, which were these like all night discussions, which also involved some dancing, right? Or at least the first one
Yes,
did.
yes, yes,
Um,
they both did. Well, okay, I missed the first tape session, the most magical, I suppose, because it was cathartic. I missed it. I had no idea what it was going to be, but I had um I had already had a surgery scheduled. I was going to have my breast implants done that same day. Had no idea, schedules just kind of crisscrossed, had no idea. Had I known, I would have changed my appointment, you know, had I
mhm.
known. But it was happening that same evening. It started at 11:30. I was out of the hospital by then. I was released. I had my new breast implants, and I was home in my apartment with my husband, and a friend came over. I was a little swollen, and I was debating whether I should go or not. And I thought we didn't know what was going to happen, and I thought I don't want people fussing over me, and we're going to be there all night long. I could take one of my sleeping bags. My husband and I used to do camping trips. And I thought, I just don't want to be the center of attention with people fussing over me. And I don't know how I'm going to get, if I'm going to, be in any how much discomfort I'm going to be in. So I chose not to go. Well, then, all of a sudden it became like the biggest event that hit New York. And
Yeah,
uh,
what was everyone saying then? What was the word on the street about what had happened?
that it was, I guess, magical. I mean, I don't remember the exact, I don't remember, but I would cathartic is what I keep thinking. So then I hear there's going to be another one in 3 weeks. And my doctor had already told me, oh, you'll be in 3 weeks, you'll be fine, you can dance again. And so I'm calling Tony and Michonne. Tony Stevens and Michonne Peacock were the originators of having this idea that they took to Michael. And then Michael took the ball and ran with it, rightly so. But because I was contemporaries with Miss Shauna and Tony, we danced in the chorus together and a couple of shows. And so I would get on the phone with them, and Tony would say, "Well, Michael doesn't want to have anyone else come in on this group now." I said, "Why? What happened? What was it all about? What's the big deal?" Well, no, I said, do me a favor, Tony, ask Michael again for me, please, just to ask him. And I remember having that conversation a couple of times, and he would call back and he would say, no, Michael doesn't think so. And I would say, ask him again, Tony, ask him again. Sure enough, he finally said, okay, tell Mitzi she can come. So, so I was thrilled, and sure enough, showed up that night, that second tape session night. We do a little warm up, and I think Tony Stevens did the combination at the first tape session because we all danced first, and then I think it was Wayne Salento that did the combination this night, the second tape session. So I wore this cute little white t-shirt that kind of accented my breasts, my new breasts, my new tits, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and mind you, I just have to preface this by saying I didn't have breast implants. Unlike the lyrics in Tits and Ass in the show, I didn't have them done to get more work. And I never had my derriere done. Uh, I had already done 6 Broadway shows when I had these implants done. I did them for me. Anyway, just for the record, just
Hmm.
since because in some of the history books, it talks about, that it talks about that I did have my derriere done. Not true. And that I had my implants done to get more work. I mean, how ridiculous. Um, so uh, so I wore this cute little t-shirt and we were dancing, we were having fun, getting a good workout. And finally in walks Michael. And he comes, because I'm right in front there. He comes in the door and he walks right up to me and he puts his hands under my breasts and he said, "Oh my God, they're beautiful." The first things out of his mouth. I mean, I just melted because I thought, oh, Thank God he likes them. But I heard behind me, I promise you, Kelly Bishop it must have been Nick Dante who was standing right there next to her, uh, say something like, they're not that great. Please. She said something. Sure enough, that ended up in the show that night.
Yeah.
Right. But that I promise you, I remember something to that effect because we all wanted Michael to just love us. Kelly vying for his attention, or me, or Pam Blair. We miss Pammy. So although she wasn't there that night. She wasn't at those two tape sessions. She was, because then we had more sessions with Michael at his apartment, on tape with him. That's when Pam showed up. He had invited her. Um, so anyway, that night then, after we danced and Michael got settled, and we went into another room and we all sat down in a big circle, and he turned on the tape recorder and he said, "Okay, Missy, you'll have to go first to catch up." And so it was, at the first tape session, they talked about their earliest recollections up until coming to New York. And then, and so I did all of that, and kind of basically told him what I just told you, although I might have talked about some other stories that I kind of remember, or don't remember that much anymore. Anyway, I would love to hear those tape sessions. I know they still exist. Then he went around the circle, and it was, coming to the second session was then, coming to New York and up to the present, which was 1974, and we went around the room, and it was a long night, listening one by one, telling our stories. Um, I don't think, maybe it was as magical as the first night for everyone, because it was magical for me because it was my first night. But they kind of, they knew the format now. They knew what it was going to be like. We're going to hear everyone's. But yet then that morning, after we kind of after finished going through everyone's story, then that's when I remember church bells chiming, because it had been a Saturday night, and that Sunday morning, like I said, when Michael, uh, I don't know, it was daylight. There was light coming in, and I don't know, it was just kind of, we all kind of, maybe we had had a little break or something, and that's when he sat us down again and said, when we weren't necessarily in a circle then, I don't remember. It seemed like we were just kind of scattered on the floor. Um, and then that's when he said, how did you feel about dancing in the chorus in Seesaw? And that story that I told you, hated it, hated it. So that's about as much as I remember of the tape sessions.
Now then, although Val was based on your stories that you told, you weren't the originator of the role on Broadway. So can you tell me what happened in between those 2 points in time?
Yes, well, Michael made the right choice. I agreed totally. Pammy was the cutest, funniest. She could sing. Um, she could tell a story. She was a good little actress. She was the right choice, period. I mean, because, well, first of all, the character Val is is a combination, unlike a lot of the characters in the show where there's layers of our stories, of people's stories. Uh, Val is completely just Pam and myself. But the monologue is Pam's story, and the song is mine, is
Hmm.
my story. And so somehow they got put together. Michael just felt that they went together, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't there for the creative process. I wasn't invited. I auditioned. I auditioned, but he didn't choose me. I don't know. I want to say maybe it was because my vocals weren't as strong as they could have been or should have been. Uh, Other than that, I don't know. Who knows why? It was meant to be. That's how I look at it. It was just
Sure.
wasn't meant to be. And luckily, at the time, I was working. I was in Pippin on Broadway. So I was fine. I had an
Yeah.
income, you know. It was a little disappointing at first, uh, but in retrospect, when I first went to see the show then down at the Shakespeare Festival at the Newman, and then seeing it at the Schubert with Pam, she just was the best. I loved her. I loved her. Everything about her. Quite talented. We did other little shows together when we were younger. Uh, a review, I remember. Oh, anyway, I'm sorry she's not here to tell her side of the story.
Right.
Uh, we miss her.
What now? So your first time seeing the show, what was your first impression seeing the whole thing put together?
Well, uh, Tony Stevens did invite me one day to see a rehearsal at a studio down on 19th Street. Uh, and they were doing at the ballet. It was so overwhelming. I couldn't come. I just couldn't take it all in. It was a bit much, and he was hiding me because they weren't supposed to have anybody. So he was hiding me behind the mirrors or someplace. I remember I was watching like under, you know, they had flats or mirrors lined up or something, and so it was a weird afternoon, but he wanted me to see it. And then finally, when they started performances at the Newman, I was invited and I was sitting in this, I guess it was the back row. Anyway, it was just a couple of seats away from Michael. Michael was sitting back there. And he was like this the whole time looking at me to see my reaction. So I felt like, I had an audience. He
Yeah.
was watching me like this to see me react. Well, it was pretty cathartic, you know, um, emotional. It was magical. It was just, to see, uh, people, dancers, having the opportunity. Sorry, I'm getting emotional right now. To have the
Mhm.
opportunity, to be a character, to be themselves, to be in a play, really, in this piece of theater where they were in the spotlight, each one of them. It was, for a dancer to be up, in the star spot, center stage. You know, Pretty neat. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael. I think I did say to him many times, thank you, Michael. I do all the time still. Every time we celebrate his birthday or every time there's on Facebook in his group, I'm always thanking him, always thanking him.
Hmm.
I mean, what a gift he gave us. What a
Really.
gift. And not just us, for generations to come, for generations to come. Anyway, getting back to that, that first performance that I saw at the Newman. Yeah, I remember we went backstage then. I wanted to say thank you to everyone. Wayne doing I Could Do That was so great. And um, the ballet ladies and on Richie, Ron Dennis, Sammy Williams monologue. Oh my God. I love Sammy. We had worked together in a couple of shows previous to A Chorus Line, and to be in that spotlight, he had that huge long story to tell, Nick Dante's life story. So uh but we were all backstage, and there were some celebrities there that night. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly who you would think, because we were just so dazed, and nobody could say anything. We were just all like, you know, breathless, and so moved to have seen what we've just seen. Um, so I mean, then I knew I had to do this. I had to do this show, and then Michael told me. I saw him one night at a party at Sardi's. He said, I want to use you. Take your voice lessons. I want to use you." So then he cast me in the London company, and I finally then started performing in the show, and
Mhm.
did for many, many years then.
Yeah. So what all different productions did you perform in, travel with? How long were you in the show?
Oh my gosh, a long, long time. It was like I
Yeah.
made a career out of it, because at that point, I did leave. Well, okay, so I did London for 6 months, but I was in Pippin at the time, and my friends in Pippin were cast. Then, when Michael was forming those next two companies, one was going to go to LA and the other was going to London, and then the third was remaining at the Schubert, because some of those original cast members were leaving the Schubert and they were going to LA, so they needed to be replaced. Uh, Pam Blair was also going to LA. So my friends in Pippin were going, Vicky Frederick and Justin Ross and Sandal, who else? Sandal Bergman. We were going into the New York company. I wanted to go into the New York company too. I didn't want to go to I didn't care to go to London. I'm glad I did in the end. So, but I couldn't understand why Michael wouldn't just put me in the New York company. And so I wouldn't sign the contract. And Bob Avian would call me and call me and say, Michael wants you to do this, Mike. And I finally said, no, okay, okay. I had never negotiated my contracts before. I was a chorus dancer. And then, being female, I knew the guys made more money than we did, but I never negotiated. I was afraid to ask for more. But this time, for the first time, I did. And I said, okay, I'll go to London if you bring me back to New York or LA, if when the role opens up. And I want it, and I said to Bob, and I want it in writing, and I want it in writing. So I got my way. Michael gave it to me. And then, sure enough, I mean, there's a lot more to all that, but Michael was so good to me. He gave me whatever I asked for, and when I knew I could get it, I would ask for, then I asked if I could go back to New York to see my doctor when I was in London, and he just and I would say to the stage manager, and I forget situations, but I started to get not a lot, just a couple of things that I thought I would try to see if I and I would say to the stage manager, oh, because the role opened up 3 months, so we had a 6 month run in London, but 3 months into the run, the role opened up. Michael was firing uh, Britain, what was her name? Who he had put into Val. Um, he was firing her. And so the stage manager came and said, Mitzi, you can go back to New York now. But I had met someone in London and I was having a good time in London and it was really fun being in London. And I said, you know what? I would like to stay here for the end of, to the end of the run, 3 more months. And then I'd like to go into the New York company. And the stage manager looked at me like, are you kidding me? And I said, ask Michael. Sure enough, Michael agreed to it. And so Michael was giving me things that, I mean, he was just so good to me. It was just, I didn't want to take advantage of all of that, but I just remember how good he was to me.
Hmm.
And then I finally did go into the New York company 3 months later. I think it was early 77. Yeah. And then I kind of lived at the Schubert for 9 years or so. I left at one time to do another Broadway show. Oh, King of Hearts. Yikes. King of Hearts. And Michael wanted me to do it because Ron Field was directing choreographing. They were friends. And I said, but if it doesn't have, if it's a flop, can I come back and do the show? And he said, don't worry about it. You will. And so he just always took care of me. Uh, he gave us dancers a gift. He knew he did. And when he did ballroom, he gave that show, it was a gift to those older dancers that he cast in ballroom. Do you, this book, just reminded me, this book, I have worn out this book. It's the best book of Michael that was written.
Okay.
Ken Mendelbaum.
Yes.
It's not out on the market anymore, and but maybe you could find it somewhere. A Chorus Line and the Musicals of Michael Bennett. It's brilliant, this book, because it's the truth. He really, I mean, you read other books and it's like, they're bitching about whatever, whatever. This is just you know, so well put out. Ken Mendelbaum he did interview me. I did have an interview with Ken, I remember way back when. Anyway, he talks about in that book how Michael gave a chorus line to dancers, to his peers. Well, no, his peers, well, were a little bit more, a little older. But then when he did ballroom, like I just said, he then gave that show to them.
Hmm.
So when I talk about how good he was to me, I think it was because he just wanted us to be comfortable. He knew what it was like to do 8 shows a week. And when needed a day off, which I would take because I was doing it for so long, I would take my 1 day a month. And, he knew that was necessary.
Yeah.
Um, Probably just to, breathe and regroup and refresh. Although, it was easy, to be in a long run as a dancer to just turn it on, be on automatic, as
Hmm.
we used to say. I thought that because I knew that was a trap. I wanted to be present. And as an actress, I wanted to be in the moment. And so I went to work every night as though I were doing it for the first time, because that's our job in theater, to be at work every night on stage as though for the first time you've ever spoken these words, the first time you've ever been in this situation. And so I wanted to be present and I wanted to practice my craft. And so, um, oh, sometimes on matinee days when for me it was like a warm up, you know,
Yeah.
uh, that's when I was the most relaxed too, maybe. And we would come off stage after my monologue, during the Cassie Paul break. And some of the kids would say to me, Mitzi, you were so funny tonight. Today, you were just hysterical. And I would say, really? What did I do? Was I really? Yeah, you were. Oh, maybe because I was just, relaxed and
Mm.
it, in it. Um, so I I loved it. I loved having the city work. I was really, really grateful.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember coming to work thinking, coming out of the subway, thinking, come on, legs, you can kick all those kicks again. You got to do a show again tonight. And I would get to the top of the subway stairs on the street, and there would be a man on crutches with one leg begging. And I would think, oh my God, I'm so fortunate. It was like a reality check that I would get, uh, and messages sent from heaven, from Michael. Thank you. Thank you. You're right. I'm going to go do my show tonight and I'm going to be great. I'm going to do the best I can. And so, uh, so it was a blessing for me. It was a
Yeah.
blessing.
Will
Um,
you tell me some about were there any backstage traditions at the Schubert?
oh my gosh. Well, uh, we had our Thanksgiving meal together because we had to always did two shows on Thanksgiving Day. And Joe Papp would come in and visit us and be with us and eat with us. And we all made dishes. And it was, potluck. Someone would bring a turkey or two for us. And we would have a feast in between shows. I don't know how did the second show, but um, it was wonderful to have Joe there with us. I loved when Jerry Schoenfeld, one of our producers, who lived right upstairs at the Schubert offices, in the Schubert Theater, would come downstage. He would come backstage. He would hang out in the stage left wing as we were going on for the finale or coming off from the finale. It was always fun to see him there. He kind of pinched our cheek a little bit. He liked all the girls. And he was very cool and sweet. We didn't see oh gosh, who was the other producer? Schoenfeld. I tried to have some notes with me, but I didn't even refer to any of them. I'm because your questions are great questions, so I'm just kind of,
Well, thank you.
going off of all your questions.
What about any onstage mishaps or things that were singular about a performance that, I mean, out of all the hundreds of times that you did it, what are some where, oh, that was something really different that happened?
Oh, okay. I did have a scary moment one night. It was a Saturday night, I remember, and I started Val's monologue. So the day after I turned 18, I kissed the folks goodbye, got on um, and just kind of like what I just did. And yes, complete blank. And the monologue is this long. And I was, and as the more, blank I went, the more terrified I became, thinking, there's this great big audience out there, and they must be wondering what the hell is going on. And all the kids on the line, and I looked down at them, and they were all like, oh my God, what's wrong with her? And I blanked, and it seemed like, minutes and minutes went by before I finally got back on track. Yeah, it was scary. It was scary. I remember my toes were digging in, to the stage
Yeah.
floor. I was standing there just, I got on the trailways. I don't think I even got trailways out. Trailways and headed for the anyway, then
Wow.
I finally got back on track, but it seemed like, a long, long time before that happened. And so I didn't go to work the whole next week. I called in sick the whole next week and said, I can't come in tonight. Took me a week to get myself back on stage.
Hmm.
Uh, but I had to. I wanted to. Um, so that was the scariest, yeah. But
Wow.
other than that, after all those years, there was maybe another moment where I just remembered in the alternative scene when Val says, "Oh, so you get into dancing, right?" No, what are those lines? I can't remember the lines now, but I repeated one. Bobby was asking me a lot something, and I repeated it twice to him, and he's looking at me like, "Listen." I thought, did I just say that twice? What? And so there was another moment of confusion. My brain switched off or something.
I want to now talk about the gala in 1983, says the longest running musical in Broadway history at the time.
Well, Greece I think we surpassed Greece. Greece ran for 6 years. So and then Chorus Line became the longest running show on the gala evening,
Uh-huh.
September 29th, 1983, right? And
Uh-huh.
so then we were the longest running show.
To mark the occasion, Michael devised a gala performance that would incorporate performers from the original and current New York companies, as well as the tours and foreign productions, inviting back over 300, was it around 300 performers that
Yes,
had
yes,
been
I
a
don't
part of.
have the exact number, but yeah.
I've read so many accounts of that evening. It culminated when all the dancers performed one in unison on stage and out in the audience, in the aisles, and up in the balcony. It's something that I wish that I could have seen. And I always say, if I had a time machine, the first place that I would travel to would be that performance. It gives me chills and brings tears to my eyes every time I just read about that powerful moment. I mean, I just hearing that trumpet come in, right after one. Um, and so I would really love to hear, what are your memories of the week leading up to that performance and being on stage again with everybody?
Oh my gosh, that week was so much fun. It started with a party. Michael threw a party for all of us on Sunday night, down at the 890, his building where he had studios. He owned that building. And he threw this big party for 300 some dancers. And we all had a good time. I've got pictures. I've got pictures of that night too, that party. I'm starting to post a bunch of photos on his because it's the year to do it. Do you know?
Hmm. Yeah,
And I've just got so many pictures. I'm going to put them all out there.
I can't wait to see them all.
Yeah, so and then we started rehearsal. Oh my God, Monday morning then. I have a little story to tell you about that if I can. So Monday morning, 10 a.m., time to start rehearsal, right? I was living all the way up on 58th Street, between First and Second Avenue. I lived there for many years. And so that morning, I get myself out of the house and think, okay, I was always running a little late and thought, well, I'll get a taxi, I'll get there, no problem. I could not get a taxi. I was crazed. I thought, I cannot be late. Well, I was. I was like 20 minutes late. However, what happened was when I got there, the door was open, the room was filled with all those dancers and press. There was a lot of press, and Michael was in a suit. We rarely saw him in a suit. He was in a suit. And when I walked in the door, he had been giving a speech. He had been talking, 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 probably for 20 minutes. And just as I walked in the door and dropped my bag and kind of mingled in the crowd where, I was, no one saw me really come in. Just at that time, he said, okay, so I need Mitzi and Delee. And I went, yes, Michael. And the timing was, I was perfect timing. I
Yeah.
could anyway. It was so funny. I thought, oh my God, thank God, I'm safe. So he took us out into the hall because he wanted to go into another studio upstairs, and he put his arm around me and we walked through the hallway, and there was some press. They were like just, taking pictures of him. And I said, Michael, you look so wonderful in this suit. And he said, well, that's the press. He said, so tell me, where do you want to be in this number? And I said, well, in the middle, of course.
Of course.
He was going to stage Tits and Ass for the gala. And so I said, in the middle, of course. So that's when he asked me, and we went up to the other studio and started rehearsals for that. Um, and once again, just gave me what I wanted. So that started the week. Yeah, he did Tits and Ass that morning. He restaged it, and then because I was in the show at the Schubert at the time. We had to do our shows at night. We had the matinees, but we were always allowed to watch his rehearsals. He allowed everybody into the studios because those studios were so big, and he allowed people in. But it was when it was between shows on Wednesday that he worked with he did the Paul monologue at the Schubert Theater. He used the stage, it was between shows, but I didn't go anywhere. I didn't go home or have dinner or anything. Because I was going to rehearse with the other two Vals. I watched the Paul monologue and what he did with the Paul monologue. Have you seen videos of the gala? Yeah.
I have.
That Paul monologue, the way he did it, like as though they were a Greek chorus, and
Hmm.
how they echoed those moments that were, he did it right in the places where it touches your heart, and that's where it echoed. My parents, my parents, my parents, my parents. I mean, I just couldn't believe what the in my mind he topped himself. I mean, here this was this glorious piece of theater about dancers. He then was creating something even better about 300 of us. And um, I just was amazed at it all. And my favorite moment, other than doing uh, Tits and Ass that night, Ron Field, who I loved. He was a director choreographer. I did 4 Broadway shows for Ron Field, and he and Michael were friends. I think they might have danced together when they were younger. Anyway, Ron had like front row seats. He was right down front, and he said to me afterwards, he said it was about Mitzi Hamilton and her girls. uh, but anyway, it was magical. It was unfortunate that Pam Blair chose not to come and do it with us. I was just writing about that. Um, it's a long story. I won't go into it now, but she chose not to come and do that show that night. Also, Zach, what's Robert Lapone, Bobby,
Mhm,
chose not to come that night also and be part of it. It's too bad they missed out.
mhm,
Uh, but because Pam only wanted to do it if it was just the two of us. But Michael wanted to use Delee Lively, pretty blonde. She was saucy. She was so cute. I loved her Val. Because of that, from what I understand, was the reason why Pam wouldn't come to take part that evening. But the best part, and the finale, of course, was so thrilling to do. But the best part for me was we had, because then on that evening, that day, we were going to do 2 performances. We had it was like a dress rehearsal, the first one, and then that evening was the record-breaking performance. And so between those 2 performances, we had a note session with Michael. We had like a lunch break, but we had
mhm.
also then had to get back to the theater to have a note session with him. And we all sat in the house in the Schubert, and he was up on the stage, with the stage managers and Franny and Don Pippin, our conductor, musical conductor, and all those wonderful people that made it all happen. Technically, he was giving us notes. He was giving us notes, and what he wanted to fix a couple of little technical things with the spotlight, with whatever, and make sure you're not late on that entrance or whatever those little notes were. At the end of the note session, he said, "I love you," and we applauded him for like 5 minutes straight. We just kept applauding him. Um, I mean, a director, choreographer never said that to us before. He just said, "I love you," like that. I mean, I've got it on audio tape, but I can still hear it. I can still hear him. And that was the most magical for me, that moment.
Mm.
Yeah, it was special. You see how it makes me get emotional. Oh
Yeah.
boy. Um,
Do you remember when was your final performance, and did you know that it was going to be your final, or were you so in and out of the show that you never knew if or when you would come back into it? Did you know that your last a chorus line performance was the last?
no, I don't remember. I don't have a recollection of having a special kind of cathartic night saying
Hmm.
goodbye to it on
Hmm.
stage. Uh, and it was probably in Europe, where I was playing Sheila. But then I was also having to wear 2 hats. I was also on the other side of the footlights taking notes, or doing rehearsals, or having to put a dancer in the show or something like that. So I was working because the producer, he would say, "Mitzi, darling," a German, a man, oh gosh, names. Anyway, he would say, Mitzi, darling. I would say, I'm not going to do the opening in Berlin, because we would be traveling from the south of Germany to the north of Germany, a long train trip. And then he wanted us to get off the train, put on our finale costumes, and do press, and then go to the theater and do a show and open the show in Berlin. And I would say, sorry, Wolfgang, I don't think I can do the opening. I can't do both. I mean, at this point, I'm 46 years old. And I said, I don't think I can get on a train and sit all that time and then, have to go through the motions of all that other nonsense, press. And he was always doing press. And so, but he would say, Mitzi, darling, I need your legs on stage. I need your legs. Which was flattering to me, but I finally said no. And I remember one night I was hiding backstage, and I had, my understudy was going to go on for me. She was thrilled to be, playing Sheila then. So I was hiding backstage. So he couldn't find me. Um, and that's when I finally had to just say, enough. I have to just take myself off the stage. I'm ready. I was
Mm-hmm.
just ready.
Mm-hmm.
And it was okay because then I had work on the other side.
So your work as a director and choreographer, um, you've staged a chorus line now around the world. Can you talk about how your relationship with the show has evolved?
Oh my gosh. Well, I delved deeper and deeper. Not that my work previously was on the surface. I still felt I was, emotionally uh, involved with it on many different levels. But when I started to recreate Michael's work, I started to think there's so much more here, and I started to imagine, like they say, peeling away uh, the outer shells of an onion. There's so many of those layers of that skin to keep peeling away to get to really a place where it came from. In other words, getting to the truth of each moment of the piece, getting to the truth, which is what we want on the stage, because then when you are connected to the truth, you believe it. When you believe it, they will believe it. So that's what you want to bring to the stage. So in my mind, that's what I wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
The reality of every moment. Um, it's important. It's important. And and I think that's what, and because of what Chorus Line does, it celebrates our individuality, but then at the end of the piece, it kind of comes full circle and we're anonymous again. We're faceless dancers doing a kick line, into all eternity of musical theater. Um, and and it's full circle. But there's something in the center to me that connects it all. It's like a wheel with spokes that are connected at the center by something uh, that's that's no, that's the place where it begins. All those spokes, that's each one of us, but and we can make this big circle around, but it's that center place that we are all finally drawn to, or that's where we started from. It's the most, has the most energy. It's the purest place that we can come from. I don't know, it's kind of over the top, because at the time I was studying also some spirituality. I was learning how to meditate. So that we really all are in this universe connected to a center
Hmm.
place. So I likened that to a chorus line in a sense. But for me, the believability is obviously most important, the honesty, uh, and that's the fun part of the work is to, allow yourself to be in the world of that play, to be there, just be,
Hmm.
you know, um, it that's fulfilling, I would think for any actor. So that's what I tried to pass on,
Hmm.
besides teaching them all the mechanics of it all. And I loved I think I was born with I mean I had some technique, but a not great technique as a young dancer. I did take ballet. I did take, I could tap, but I think I had a style. I um I I was born with a gift of style, I think. So for me to teach that, was easy. And I loved teaching because how do you teach style? You're either born with it or you either have it or you don't. But you
Yeah.
you can, and I think it's just by getting inside the dancer and telling them to just, I would say, connect with that stuff you got inside. Why do you love dancing? It's just all in here. It's all in here. And
Yeah.
that's all you need is just that. Um, with that hat. Oh, you want to see my hat?
Oh, you have your hat?
I do. I just remembered. Yes, I have it packed in this. Well, it's not packed, but I have it covered. And let me get it real quick.
Okay.
Out. People with all our hats. There you see Mitzi.
Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
isn't it pretty? Look at that.
Did you have it the entire time you're performing, or did it ever have to be rebuilt?
Uh, I think I had it for years. It
Wow.
looks so, worn. My
Yeah.
makeup, look at that. No, it was the one I used for years. I think it was the only one I've had all those years. Can you imagine? Yeah, yeah, that's me,
Uh,
right?
oh my gosh, I love
Look
that.
at, I just happened to wear, see, I match. Isn't
You look
that funny?
fabulous. All right, so now I want to ask you, what is the most important thing that you feel like you learned from working with Michael and being in a chorus line?
Oh, gosh, the most important. Well, gratitude. Gratitude comes to mind. I just, was in the right place, I guess, at the right time, they say. Uh, had I come to New York a couple of years later, it might have been different, or a couple of years earlier. Being part of something that was so innovative was very special too. Just had so much more meaning in many ways. I suppose because it was about us. Not too many shows are written in that fashion. So
Hmm.
it's unique, isn't it? It's so unique, even to this day. Um, there's been nothing like it, has there?
Right. I mean, and most shows, when they get revived, they have reimagined sets and costumes and tweaks to the script to make it, relevant or palatable. But for the most part, a chorus line, they call them replica productions, right? It's like the original designs, the original staging and choreography. It stood the test of time and it still connects with audiences.
Yes, I did start to play around with it a little bit because I did feel that, of course, I did feel that it's timeless. That was the thought that I had, that it's timeless because now another generation and then another generation, over the years are doing it. So, give them, uh, let it be about them. So I tried to dress them a little different. Michael did that too, but it's really a period piece. It really is. But I also played around with the set. I did all those lights in the back. When I did a paper mill, oh my gosh. Can I tell you the story about Poland? The company that I did in Polish, is there time?
Let's do it.
Oh, okay. So, doing it in Europe, I did it in Vienna in German. And then I did it in Poland in Polish. But this theater group in Poland, they were so special. I love them so much to this day. And some of them stay in touch with me on Facebook. They're so sweet. They were like sponges. They wanted to know anything and everything about, and we had a bit of a language issue because not all of them spoke English and some of them spoke a little English, but I had an interpreter with me at all times. And so she helped. But when I started to talk about Michael and what he gave us, and, all the stories that I've just relayed to you, because, at the end of the day, after dancing all day long, teaching all those steps, they were just getting fried. I would, I had an hour left maybe of rehearsal, and I would say, okay, sit down, everybody, let's just sit down and talk. And I would start talking about Michael. Their eyes would, open wide, and they just, I could see that they were getting it, that they were understanding what it was all about. And then they just wanted to know more and more about Michael. And I was having to go through the guy who did the translation. He got some things a little wrong. And so we would go out after rehearsal and have a beer and comb through some things that I needed him to fix. But I would be talking about Michael. He just wanted to know more and more too. It was like they made the finale hats, they made the costumes, they got the shoes, the most beautiful dance shoes. They made, because Bjork had given me a finale costume, male and female finale costume. I took them with me when I first went to hold auditions there. And so they could copy them. And sure enough, when I came back then months later to start rehearsal, they were so beautiful. The designers, the sound designers, they recreated the sound for me like we had at the Schubert Theater. We had no body mics. We had no body mics at the Schubert all those years that it played at the Schubert. We had foot mics, we had over, so they created that for me, and it was more natural, it was more real, because nowadays the kids rely on those body mics and they get relaxed. The performance is different. It takes on a different level. That's not right, because you want to talk to the director in the back of the house, because you're there because you want the job. You need the job, and so you project when you have the body mic, your voice is getting picked up, and so you can just relax. The energy is wrong then. Do
Yeah.
you know the intention. So anyway, I loved that Polish company. They were so beautiful in the end. I had 6 weeks to put it together, and they were glorious. They were just yeah, they were kind of my favorite.
I want to thank you so much for spending so much of your afternoon with me. You are so vibrant still and so joyful, and I love just hearing the passion with which you speak about Michael and a chorus line and all of your experiences. I know that everyone who hears this podcast is also going to really appreciate the time and the stories that you shared with us. So thank you so much.
Oh God, I had fun. Thank you. I loved reliving reliving it all, and you were beautiful to spend the afternoon with. You guided me just easy breezy. It was a lovely time to spend with you. All the best
Thank
to
you.
you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. The Immortal Icons of Dance podcast is written, edited, and produced by me, Lauren Johnson. Our music is written and produced by Shelby Rassler of Jenkins and Rassler, and technical support is provided by Anne-Marie Johnson and Jenny Albrecht. Major support for this season of the podcast was provided by Robert Schulman. I also wish to thank sponsors Zahif, Jenny, Margarita, Natalie, Mary, Liz, Jean, and Denise. If you'd like to support the work being done here by Immortal Icons of Dance, visit immortaliconsofdance.com/donate.